Welcome to the Hourly Podcast. In today's episode, Geoffrey Genova, a former HourWork employee and now Sprockets employee after their recent acquisition of the HourWork technology, discusses the value of two-way communication in hourly workplaces and its impact on the employee experience. Overall, the conversation focuses on the importance for a seamless employee journey from pre-hire to post-employment and how businesses can focus on data and insights captured by two-way communication to improve operations and their hiring process. Enjoy.
This episode is brought to you by JoJo, an AI virtual recruiter powered by Sprockets. Designed for the hourly workforce, JoJo works 24/7 to source, screen, and schedule interviews with the best applicants for your business. JoJo helps reduce employee turnover and time spent hiring so you and your team can focus on other important tasks. To learn more, head to sprockets.ai/JoJo.
I'm glad that we were able to have you on the pod. How are you, man?
I'm doing great. Yeah, excited to be here. It's going to be great.
Yeah, so for those that don't know who you are, tell us a little bit about Geoffrey. What do you do? What are you passionate about? And what are you looking forward to in the future? Big questions here on the Hourly Podcast.
I love it. Get right into it. Well, I'm talking to everybody from Boston, Massachusetts. You know, a good startup ecosystem up here, and most recently was at HourWork, where we were focusing on the employee experience for a lot of hourly workplaces across the country. Prior to that, I've always been in the people space, whether it's recruiting, whether it's in healthcare, just focusing on people, and that's sort of my passion. And a long time ago, I was doctorate program for clinical psych, and I've taken a turn, but I haven't left the people space directly. And so very happy to have landed with you, AJ, at Sprockets.
Yeah, and for those listeners that don't know, Sprockets, the company that I'm the CEO of, recently acquired HourWork. From our perspective, and I think the perspective of our customers, it was a bit of a match made in heaven, a huge opportunity for us to service on Sprockets the pre-hire stuff. So can we help you hire the best people? And on the HourWork side is, can we communicate with your team? Can we create incentives for them to stay? And ultimately, can we make them happier? And Jeff, leading the go-to-market on the HourWork side, thought would be a great place for us to kind of start and have an amazing conversation with. So Jeff, tell us a little bit about HourWork. What do you guys do? Would you describe it to somebody on a bar stool? And what kind of value do you drive to customers?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was not the founder, but I came on at a time of transition for HourWork when we were expanding from purely a communication and hiring platform to more of an insight-driven and analysis platform as well. And so what we seem to have done best is create a large amount of responses from hourly staff, basically asking them at the right times based on where they are in their employment journey, how things are going for them, whether it's, do you feel comfortable with onboarding? What's the culture like on the team? How is your manager doing if you were to rank them versus, sometimes it's the other way around as well. And getting just a full holistic view for each restaurant across someone's portfolio or every location. How is that store doing at a personal level? And what that allows leadership to do and managers to do is provide them with a holistic view of where they can spend most of their time to improve the people aspect of their operations, which typically has a trickle down effect or trickle out effect to every other sort of metric that they care about. So you can think of HourWork as really the employee engagement solution for a lot of spaces, but also the analysis and the back end of, great, we have 30,000 exit interviews and we have all these messages coming up, but what do we do with them? How do we make sense of this in a way that's digestible and actionable? And that's the piece that we were really excited about continuing to build on. I think that's something that with Sprockets, we can even accelerate faster.
Yeah. And, talk to me a little bit about the two-way communication piece. So when we bought HourWork, we were looking at a lot of different solutions that do something similar post-hire, right? Mass message and mass check-in with applicants or with employees at that time. And there was kind of like in this space, some polarizing views on, should this be two-way communication or should this be one-way communication from the company? Why, from your perspective, do you think it's important to kind of have that two-way And give us some examples maybe of what that might look like for an actual user.
Yeah, sure. I think the kind of vision we had was we wanted a way for people to feel comfortable having a private conversation directly with the people that mattered most, whether that was directly with leadership, directly with management, and know that their message and their feedback was heard and acknowledged, right? So we decided to meet people where they are, which is just through text message currently, but make it easier for the leadership to organize that, whether by email or by a platform. And the reason we wanted it two-way was that if someone shares something genuine and it's maybe something that's not necessarily very positive, letting someone know that you support them, that you hear them, and that you're going to do something about it directly in that same conversation only encourages them to be more honest and open about what they care about the most the next time you ask them a question. Whereas if you were to send an annual survey, someone takes the time to fill out all the open-ended questions. It's not just a quick, 1 to 5, and they never hear anything about it. They may wonder what happened to that information. Was it worth the time that they put in? So giving that two-way communication from a feedback perspective was really powerful to keep that positive sort of snowball effect of people being more engaged with the platform, more engaged with answering and kind of having these conversations. But at a more like direct level and tactical level, it was, if there's inclement weather, being able to send out a message saying, "Are you okay?" to your entire staff at the same time, and you getting those responses back was really powerful, especially with the weather we've been having across the country. Or questions.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think it's so interesting around the two-way communication, particularly in your point on authenticity and making people feel comfortable. Like one thing that I thought was interesting learning more about the company was the amount of bad things that get reported, right? So it's easy when you have one-way communication to like be like, hey, everything's rosy, everything's great. Meanwhile, you have 180% turnover and nothing ever really gets better. But the two-way communication kind of opened a portal where I feel like people could be really honest and really give what they think about the business, and the extremes being, hey, I saw something that I feel uncomfortable with, to, really simple example of, hey, my uniform doesn't fit. Right. And it's those little things that people won't go to their GM about that really lead to attrition, toxic cultures, bad workplace practices. So for me, it's so obvious that you would want the two-way. So like, I'm glad that we're on the same page. Anything else that you'd like to add there? Any other examples you might have?
Yeah, I would say, especially on figuring out why people leave, what we discovered after sending over 3 million of these sort of messages was that a lot of people leave for preventable reasons, but for one reason or another, they're not willing to have that conversation in person with the manager who may have let them go. So when we sent out a text-based exit survey, we got over a 25% response rate. And you would get really genuine, honest conversation starters that could be replied to directly. And we have an example of over like 10 to 20,000 people were able to be brought back into restaurants purely because it was a misunderstanding, a scheduling issue, maybe transferring stores if they're local. And that was another way where people even had this added benefit of the businesses being proactive and reaching out to people to truly understand what was going on, letting them know where this message is going. And then people opened up way more than they would in a email exit survey or trying to catch them while you hand them the last paycheck. And it actually improved their retention and people numbers long term because you're bringing people back into the stores who were effective workers, but for a reason wanted to leave. And you were kind of given the chance to have that conversation directly. And that's sort of the power of the text-based communication is people feel sometimes a little more comfortable in this generation to kind of communicate in that way.
And so if somebody right now isn't using a solution like HourWork, like how does somebody do it? Is it like group chat, like group me? Like what have you seen people do without this AI tech?
Yeah, I think there's a number of ways to talk to a bunch of people that are free, right? WhatsApp, group me. There are certain things where you can send out sort of static standalone announcements. I think where HourWork had the most benefit and took the most work off of people's plates is every business could set it up as they wanted to say, when do we want to send out a communication to people? And let's automate that first interaction. So we know everyone's getting the same support and coverage. No matter if someone forgot a birthday, they're still getting a birthday message. If it's their first week, we always want to send them something to check in and see how that first week's been. Or if they're terminated for the right reasons, and we can, customize by term code, we want to know why they left and make sure everyone gets that question as well. And so you kind of know you're covered your bases on being proactive in communication across the org, and you don't have to rely on someone to remember someone's work anniversary or their 30-day in a way that a lot of people kind of tend to do right now if they're using more of a free surface.
Yeah, super interesting. And I know that we talk a lot about the restaurant space, but our work is actually collaborating with a lot of different types of companies, right? I saw just today we're starting to work with manufacturing businesses, transportation systems. Like, talk to me a little bit about that. Like, do we have, maybe not using the name of the company, but any success stories of people outside of just the QSR industry?
Yeah, I think anywhere where there is more hourly workers than one sort of manager could conceivably have a weekly one-on-one with, our work could be really helpful, because you still want to know how people are doing. You want to check in with them, make sure they understand that there's a place for them to go for a question instead of getting frustrated and maybe leaving without really understanding why. So I think in the manufacturing and the warehouse industry, we have people in the bakery, kind of like the people who create the food for a lot of these QSRs, and we're working with them. Any place that, maybe they're not directly connected to a home office. So if there's like home health aides, for example, or somewhere where you're on the road a lot, but you still want to have a pulse on how everyone is doing, that's a lot of the places where our work has really flourished.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, when I think about one of the many reasons that we decided to acquire our work was how fast it was to value, right? So like today, everything's about time to value, time to value, time to value. Like customers want to know that when they acquire something, that they're going to be able to get stood up fairly quickly. And HR tech has some warts and says some hair for taking a really long time to implement, right? Like migrating applicant tracking is a month process, switching job boards is a week process, and switching HRIS feels like it could be years, right? Talk to us a little bit about, like, if a customer signed today, and tomorrow they had some sort of onboarding, how long would it take, and kind of what do those steps look like for a business that just joins with the software?
Yeah, I think our strategy has always been, we want this to work as quickly as possible, and we want to make sure it's customized to the organization. So there's really just two parts to that. One is connecting the backend system, and that's as simple as sometimes just going into a website and clicking, we authorize our work, or we authorize Sprockets, and we're getting the relevant employee data the same day or within 24 hours. And the second piece is meeting with the relevant people on the customer's team to say, how do you want to design this onboarding experience? When do you want these messages to go out? Who do you want to receive these messages, and in what cadence? And once that's set, and that could be the same day, you could be onboarded in conceivably like less than 48 hours if, schedules allow. But that's assuming that, we have a strong integration partnership with, and we actually have a great relationship with the majority of HR systems and payroll systems across the country. So that is something we've already been sort of getting ahead of. And so it's really up to the team and how they want to kind of match the urgency, because we can be pretty quick.
Yeah. Because like when we were looking at it, of course, it was, the Sprockets have integrations to support our work, and does our work have some integrations that would support Sprockets customers? And there's, like, really interestingly enough, there wasn't much overlap. So now, combined with the two companies, the two engineering teams, the two integration teams, the two platforms, we cover, I think, just about every single HR platform that we would want to work with. So being able to plug that in day one, get the data feed and get the messages out, really important. And, I'm going to challenge the team to do it faster than 48 hours, right? But that's my style.
Sure.
I like kind of moving fast for people and getting them really excited. But talking about kind of our work in Sprockets, like you had the opportunity to either leave, with the acquisition and say, hey, our work is a part of my past, had an exit, etc. But you decided to stay, right? And of course, we recruited you. We wanted to hear all those good things. But someone like you in a big market, a lot of options of employment. Why'd you decide to stay with the mission? Like, what about our work, or what about Sprockets got you excited?
Yeah, I think at its core, our work really did provide a valuable service, not only for the business owners, but also for the workers who work there. And it did improve the experience of people at the end of the day. And that's what I care about the most. And seemingly Sprockets has a similar ethos of we're helping, make sure that if someone's going to work at a business, like it's a good match for both parties and it builds like a strong experience for that employee as well. And, for the business that hires them. And so for me, combining the two to kind of cover the bases from first interaction all the way through their employment journey and when they ultimately move on, and understanding how to best support them through that entire cycle is just a prospect that really excites me. And I didn't really want to leave this space. So given the chance to join you guys and combine those two sides of the employee journey, I think was really cool.
Yeah, and I think of it kind of an employment journey and also like the data insights piece that gets me really excited. So like with our technology at Sprockets, it's like from high applicant, which is what JoJo reaches out to an applicant. She screens them. She then can go all the way through the motion and hire that person, right? So from high to hired is JoJo, which is our AI bot at Sprockets. And then now with HourWork continuing that journey where that person can continue to get messages, get check-ins from one singular instance, and over time, stay with that person until their very last day of work and beyond, right? So we went from high to hired to now as a joint company, high applicant to goodbye team member, right? And I think that consistency is just so important. And I know that the data team's foaming at the mouth, being able to track the data from those 2 points. Because right now we think about retention, happiness, culture, profits, and growth. Now we can look at, because we have so much more data on the back end side of things, what type of applicants translate into the best employees? And how can the data from post-hire influence the hiring decisions we make on the pre-hire? So it's like 1 + 1 = 1,000 when it comes
Right.
to the value proposition. And over time, as the companies integrate deeper and deeper, I think that's the biggest opportunity. Any thoughts there?
No, I totally agree. And I think just supporting the employees, whether they are someone who's in school and more of like a seasonal type worker, but making sure that they're supported the same way as someone who's looking for promotions and moving into leadership when they're ready. I think something like HourWork with Sprocket support can sort of make sure that everyone there has the best experience, which leads to, the best impacts from the business side as well, where people want to stay, they're motivated to come back. There's less of a labor challenge so that the business can focus on more business metrics and business operations to improve every other piece of the workforce.
Yeah, and you keep touching on like a core reason why I was really enamored by the HourWork team and product is I think, very different, juxtaposing current solutions. It's very employee centric, right? So kind of like the philosophy of HourWork, and I know the mission statement, and it gives me goosebumps, is help 80 million people achieve the American dream, right? And when you treat people correctly, they stay and they help the business. And the technology on HourWork side, to me, from the outside, feels like it's designed to help the applicant or the employees, and therefore, in turn, helps the business. When I think HR tech largely, traditionally, is designed to be company focused, and then it trickles down to the employee journey, right? And from what I'm thinking and that I envision, I know you do too, is combined, I think we can build a really strong journey for applicants and technology with the applicants in mind that will be far better for them and in turn yield so much more ROI for the customers on the platform. Because right now, with the labor market where it is, right, and employees being able to control a lot of what happens inside of the restaurants, happier employees, more engaged workforce means more profits. But long hiring cycles, archaic HR technology platforms, and customer or the company centric platforms doesn't always yield that same thing. So I'm really excited about that, and really excited to bring the two companies together. But we're on the 20-minute mark, and because this is the hourly podcast, Jeff, we ask every single person the same question as the last question. It's, what was your first hourly job? And were you fired from that job, or did you leave gracefully?
Oh, great question. My first hourly job, I was a stager for fancy houses in Boston. So a house would go up for sale, all the furniture would move out. I would be in the back of an unmarked van with about 5 other high school kids, and we would, seatbelts on, of course, would be moving in this nice looking furniture. Someone would come in, take a bunch of pictures. We'd move the furniture out. We'd drive to the next brownstone in Back Bay, Boston, and do that for about 10 hours a day. And it was great. I got to see some places I would aspire to live one day. If Gary is still the boss over there, he'd probably have me back today. So left gracefully.
Well, shout out Gary. But again, thanks so much for being on the podcast, and really looking forward to working with you.
Yeah, I'm excited. Can't wait.